What if your dreams aren't random flickers of imagination, but living reflections of your consciousness? What if every image, every symbol, every surreal encounter in sleep is a mirror held up by the quantum field itself, showing you not what you think, but what you truly are? In this exploration of the quantum mind, we journey beyond psychology, beyond neuroscience, into the mysterious frontier where thought, emotion, and the fabric of reality entwine. Because maybe the universe dreams through you, not to entertain you, but to awaken you. There is a moment, always, just before consciousness fully returns, when the dream still holds you in its gossamer threads. Not quite memory, not quite vision, but something more elemental. A knowing that bypasses the rational mind and speaks directly to the quantum fabric of your being. I have watched this moment countless times, this sacred threshold where one reality dissolves into another. Tonight, as with every night across the cosmos, billions of minds slip beneath the veil, becoming receivers for transmissions from a field that science is only beginning to understand. We call it sleep, but what if it's really awakening? The images come first, always the images, a vast ocean of crystalline light, waves rolling in patterns too perfect for randomness, geometric forms that pulse with their own inner rhythm, spiraling into configurations that seem to hold the secrets of creation itself. These are not the chaotic fragments of a tired brain sorting through the day's debris. They are compositions of remarkable precision, symphonies of meaning that arrive fully formed from somewhere beyond the boundaries of individual consciousness. Watch how they move, these dream visions that visit you in the quiet hours. See how they carry emotional signatures too specific to be coincidental, too profound to be mere neural static. The feeling of flying, not just the sensation of weightlessness, but the absolute certainty that you are meant for this freedom. The sense of being watched by eyes that know you completely, without judgment, with infinite compassion. The recurring symbol that appears across decades of dreams, evolving in meaning, as you evolve in understanding. Modern neuroscience maps the mechanics beautifully. Rapid eye movement stages, theta wave patterns, the limbic system processing emotional memories while the prefrontal cortex remains largely offline. But mapping the terrain is not the same as understanding the journey. What if the brain's decreased activity during REM sleep isn't a bug in the system, but a feature? What if the quieting of our analytical faculties creates space for something far more ancient and wise to emerge? Consider this. In the laboratory of your sleep, impossible things happen routinely. You speak with the deceased as if they never left. You inhabit multiple bodies, multiple timelines, multiple versions of yourself across parallel possibilities. You will receive solutions to problems you haven't yet encountered, warnings about futures you haven't yet chosen, guidance that your waking mind would dismiss as fantasy but your dreaming consciousness accepts as truth. The mystics have always known this. Indigenous dreamtime traditions speak of the Alka-Ringa, the eternal dreaming from which all reality springs. Aboriginal wisdom keepers navigate vast distances across the Australian continent using songlines, energy pathways that exist as much in the dreamtime as in physical geography. These aren't primitive superstitions, but sophisticated understandings of consciousness as a non-local phenomenon, unbounded by the skull's confines. Jung saw it too, this collective unconscious that dreams draw from, a shared reservoir of archetypal images and universal symbols that appear across cultures and centuries with stunning consistency. The hero's journey that Campbell traced through every mythology isn't just a storytelling template. It's a map of consciousness evolution that each dreaming mind helps to create and maintain. But what if we've been thinking too small? What if the collective unconscious isn't just a human phenomenon, but a subset of something vast, a cosmic field of information and potential that permeates all of existence? What if your dreams aren't just personal movies playing on the screen of sleep, but interactive dialogues with the very intelligence that guides the formation of galaxies and the growth of redwood trees? The quantum physicists have given us the mathematics for this possibility. They've shown us that consciousness and measurement are intimately linked at the subatomic level, that the act of observation literally brings reality into being from an infinite sea of potential. What happens then, when 8 billion human minds sink into the oceanic depths of sleep each night? What kind of collective observation might be taking place in those vast Timbys territories of dream? Tonight, as you close your eyes and surrender to the descent, remember this. You are not just falling asleep. You are diving into the deepest laboratory of consciousness, where the boundaries between self and cosmos become beautifully, mysteriously permeable. The dreams that come to you are not random, they are invitations to remember who you really are, beneath all the stories you tell yourself in daylight. The dreamer awakens, and in awakening dreams, and in dreaming begins to glimpse the invisible thread that weaves through all things, the golden cord that connects your sleeping mind to the dreaming heart of the universe itself. What will you discover there, in that space between breaths, between thoughts, between one reality and another? What messages await you in the quantum field of infinite possibility? The only way to know is to let go, to trust the ancient wisdom of surrender, and to remember that every night you are given the most precious gift, the chance to die to who you think you are and be reborn to who you truly are. The dreamer awakens, and the real journey begins. Light behaves strangely when no one is watching. This is not poetry, though it sounds like it should be. This is the hardest of hard science, verified in laboratories around the world for over a century now. When photons, those fundamental packets of light energy, travel from source to destination without observation, they exist in what physicists call superposition. They are simultaneously wave and particle, taking all possible paths at once, spreading through space like ripples on an infinite pond. But the moment you set up a detector, the moment you try to pin down exactly which path the photon took, something extraordinary happens. The wave function collapses. The infinite possibility crystallizes into singular reality. The photon chooses one path, one state, one truth, and all other potentials vanish like morning mist. This is the observer effect, and it suggests something so profound about the nature of reality that even Einstein couldn't fully accept it. God does not play dice with the universe, he famously protested, but the universe seemed to disagree. Quantum mechanics revealed a cosmos built not on solid, predetermined foundations, but on probability clouds and potential futures that spring into being only when consciousness turns its attention toward them. Now extend this logic into the landscape of sleep. Consider your dreams as consciousness in superposition, existing simultaneously in all possible states until the moment of awakening. Observation collapses them into memory, into meaning, into the singular story you tell yourself about what happened in the night. But what if something else is happening during those 8 hours of darkness? What if your dreaming mind, freed from the constraints of waking observation, exists in a state of pure potential, connected to every possible version of yourself, every timeline, every choice you might make or might have made? What if dreams are your consciousness exploring the quantum foam of possibility, gathering information from futures that haven't crystallized yet, and pasts that exist in parallel dimensions of experience? The double-slit experiment, that foundational demonstration of quantum weirdness, becomes a metaphor for the dreaming mind. When electrons are fired at a barrier with 2 openings, they create an interference pattern on the detection screen, proof that each individual electron somehow goes through both slits simultaneously, interfering with itself like a wave. But place a detector at one of the slits to see which path the electron actually takes, and the interference pattern disappears. The act of measurement forces the electron to choose a path, collapsing its wave-like superposition into particle-like certainty. Your dreams exist in that same strange space before measurement, before the act of awakening forces them to collapse into linear narrative. In the dreaming state, you are simultaneously the observer and the observed, the wave and the particle, the dreamer and the dream. You exist in all possible states at once, flying and falling, loving and losing, becoming and dissolving, until the alarm clock sounds and consciousness snaps back into the illusion of singular selfhood. But here's where it gets truly extraordinary. What if the collapse isn't complete? What if fragments of those other possibilities, those other selves, continue to exist somewhere in the quantum substrate of consciousness? What if dreams are not just personal experiences, but actual explorations of parallel realities, parallel versions of yourself living out different choices in different timelines? The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics suggests that every quantum measurement doesn't just collapse one wave function, it splits the universe into multiple branches, each containing a different outcome. Every time you observe a quantum event, reality forks like a river delta, creating infinite copies of yourself experiencing every possible result simultaneously. If this is true, and the mathematics increasingly suggest it might be, then your dreams could be windows into those other worlds, other selves, other possibilities. The version of you that made different choices, chose different loves, walked different paths. The dreams where you meet your deceased grandmother might not be symbolic processing of grief, but actual contact with a timeline where she never died. The dreams where you discover hidden rooms in your childhood home might be visits to a reality where your family never moved away. This sounds like science fiction, but consider the growing body of research on cognitive dreams, dreams that seem to anticipate future events with startling accuracy. If consciousness were truly confined to the brain, limited to processing past experiences and current sensory input, such phenomena should be impossible. But if consciousness operates at a quantum level, existing in superposition across multiple timelines until the moment of observation collapses it into present experience, then precognitive dreams become not supernatural, but natural extensions of consciousness, exploring its own potential futures. The ancient Greeks had a word for this: kairos, time that exists outside of chronos, the linear progression of seconds and minutes. Kairos is the time of dreams, the time of inspiration, the time when all moments exist simultaneously, and consciousness can access any of them. It's the time of quantum superposition, before the observer effect forces reality to choose just one face to show the world. Scientists studying consciousness have begun to map the brain states associated with different dream phases, but their instruments can only measure the neurological correlates of dreaming, the electrical activity, the neurotransmitter cascades, the regional activation patterns. They cannot measure the dreams themselves, the actual content and meaning, a mysterious intelligence that flows through those neural networks like water through a riverbed. The riverbed is not the river, the brain is not the mind, and the mind, it seems, is not contained by the skull. What if consciousness is more like a quantum field, non-local, interconnected, existing everywhere and everywhen simultaneously? What if individual minds are like whirlpools in this infinite ocean, temporary patterns of self-organization that maintain the illusion of separation while remaining fundamentally part of the same vast, dreaming cosmos? In the laboratory of sleep, the boundaries dissolve. The careful walls that waking consciousness builds around the self become permeable, and you begin to remember what you really are. Not a separate being having dreams, but a localized expression of the universe dreaming itself into existence, moment by moment, choice by choice, observation by observation. Between waves and particles, between sleeping and waking, between self and cosmos, you dance in the quantum foam of pure potential, and sometimes, if you pay very close attention, you can feel the invisible threads that connect you to everything that ever was or ever could be. The question is not whether dreams are real. The question is, which reality are you choosing to observe? The human brain weighs approximately 3 pounds. It consumes about 20 watts of power, less than a bright light bulb. It contains roughly 86 billion neurons, each connected to thousands of others in a network of staggering complexity. By any reasonable measure, it is the most sophisticated information processing system we know of in the universe. And yet, there are experiences that seem to transcend its physical limitations. Moments when consciousness appears to operate beyond the boundaries of the skull. The mother who wakes at the exact moment her child sleeping in another room begins to have a nightmare. The twins who call each other simultaneously after months of no contact. The dreamer who sees a place they've never been, only to encounter it years later with startling accuracy. These are not supernatural phenomena. They are natural phenomena that our current scientific paradigm struggles to explain, like waves on a shore that hint at vast oceans beyond our immediate perception. I remember the first time I truly understood this, not intellectually, but viscerally in the way that changes you forever. I was 7 years old visiting my grandmother's house for the summer. The old Victorian sat on a hill overlooking a valley that seemed to stretch into infinity, filled with morning mist and the songs of birds I couldn't name. Every night I would dream of exploring the basement of that house, finding room after room that didn't exist in waking reality, chambers filled with old books, mysterious artifacts, doorways that led deeper and deeper into an underground world of impossible beauty. For weeks these dreams continued with Remarkable consistency. The same doorway in the basement wall, always slightly ajar, always beckoning. The same narrow staircase spiralling down into depths that shouldn't have been possible given the house's position on the hillside. The same sense of profound homecoming as I descended into those dream chambers, as if I were returning to a place I had always known but had somehow forgotten. On the last night of my visit, something changed. Instead of descending the staircase, I found myself floating upward, through the floors of the house, through the roof, into the star-filled sky above the valley. As I rose higher, I could see the house from above, but not as it appeared in daylight. This was the house of dreams, the house of possibility, with extensions and additions that existed in other dimensions of space and time. I could see the basement chambers I had been exploring, but now I understood. They weren't underneath the house, they were underneath everything. A vast network of rooms and passages that connected not just to my grandmother's basement, but to every home, every memory, every dream that had ever been dreamed. I woke with tears streaming down my face, though I couldn't have said why. The dream felt more real than reality, more true than anything I had ever experienced in my waking life. But I was 7, and 7-year-olds don't have language for such experiences, so I filed it away as a beautiful impossibility and went down to breakfast. 23 years later, my grandmother died. While helping to clear out her belongings, I discovered something that stopped me cold. Architectural plans hidden in a drawer of her writing desk, yellowed with the age and dated from the year before my birth. Plans for renovating the basement, adding a workshop and storage rooms that would extend beneath the hillside, accessed through, yes, a doorway in the basement wall, leading to a narrow staircase spiraling down into the earth. The renovations were never completed. My grandfather had died that winter, and my grandmother never had the heart to continue the project alone, but the plans existed, drawn by his own hand, matching my childhood dreams with unsettling precision. Coincidence? Perhaps. But coincidence is often just the word we use for patterns we don't yet understand. What if my 7-year-old consciousness had somehow accessed information that existed in the field around that house? The hopes and plans and unrealized dreams that lingered in the quantum substrate of memory and intention. What if the basement I explored night after night wasn't just a product of my imagination, but a real place that existed in potential, waiting to be born into physical reality? This is what I mean when I speak of consciousness as a field. Not the brain itself, but something that operates through the brain, something that extends beyond the physical boundaries of the skull and connects us to information and intelligence that exists everywhere and everywhen. The brain becomes like a radio receiver, capable of tuning into different frequencies of this consciousness field, sometimes picking up signals from our own personal history, sometimes from the collective human experience, sometimes from sources we can barely begin to imagine. Modern physics already accepts the existence of invisible fields that permeate all of space. The electromagnetic field carries information across vast distances at the speed of light. The quantum field underlies all matter and energy, manifesting as particles only when observed. The Higgs field gives mass to fundamental particles through its interactions with them. Why should consciousness be exempt from this fundamental pattern of reality? In fact, the evidence for consciousness as a field phenomenon grows stronger every year. Studies of quantum coherence in microtubules within neurons suggest that the brain might operate as a quantum computer, processing information through non-local correlations rather than purely classical chemical reactions. Research into the electromagnetic fields generated by neural activity reveals complex patterns that persist outside the brain, potentially carrying information that other brains could detect and decode. Even more intriguingly, experiments in presentiment, the ability to sense future events before they happen, consistently show measurable physiological responses seconds before random stimuli are presented. The body knows things before the conscious mind does, suggesting that consciousness might have access to information from slightly ahead in the timeline, information that arrives through channels our current science doesn't fully understand. But perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from the dreams themselves, those nightly journeys into territories of experience that feel simultaneously foreign and familiar, populated by characters we've never met who somehow know us intimately, guided by a wisdom that surpasses our waking intelligence. If dreams were simply random neural firing, we would expect them to be chaotic, meaningless, devoid of narrative coherence. Instead, they often possess a symbolic sophistication and emotional intelligence that rivals the greatest works of art. The Aboriginal Australians mapped an entire continent using Dreamtime navigation, travelling thousands of miles through trackless desert by following songlines that existed as much in consciousness as in physical geography. The Seni people of Malaysia developed an entire culture around shared dreaming, teaching children to become lucid in their dreams and bring back gifts of knowledge and creativity for their community. Ancient traditions from Tibet to Egypt developed sophisticated technologies of consciousness, maps of inner terrain as detailed and accurate as any geographical survey. These weren't primitive peoples confused about the difference between dreams and reality. These were sophisticated civilizations that understood something about consciousness that we're only beginning to rediscover, that the mind is not contained by the brain, but operates through it as part of a vast, interconnected field of intelligence that includes, but transcends, individual awareness. Your mind is not just in your head. Your mind is everywhere you've ever been, everyone you've ever loved, every possibility you've ever imagined. It extends backward and through your ancestry, forward through your potential, outward through the web of relationships that define your existence. It includes the quantum field fluctuations in the space around your body, the electromagnetic patterns generated by your heartbeat and brainwaves, the gravitational distortions created by your physical presence in the universe. When you dream, you are not just processing the day's experiences through neural networks. You are tuning into the vast symphony of information that surrounds and includes you, picking up signals from the field of consciousness that connects all things. Sometimes these signals come from your own deeper wisdom, sometimes from the collective human experience, sometimes from sources so vast and ancient that they can only be called cosmic. The question is not whether this field exists. The question is, how clearly can you tune into it? How much of the infinite information available to consciousness are you willing and able to receive? The answer, as always, begins in dreams, where the boundaries thin, where the impossible becomes ordinary, where your individual mind remembers that it was never really individual at all. Feel it now, the subtle shift in your chest as you read these words, the almost imperceptible change in your breathing, the micro tensions that arise and dissolve in your shoulders, the way your heart rhythm adjusts to the meaning flowing through your awareness. You are not just reading about emotion, you are experiencing the physics of feeling, the way consciousness translates abstract information into the tangible electricity of a live experience. Emotion is not metaphor. It is literal energy in motion, electromagnetic patterns that ripple through your nervous system, cascade through your bloodstream, radiate outward from your body as measurable frequencies that sensitive instruments can detect from several feet away. When you feel joy, you're not simply having a good thought. You're vibrating at a specific frequency that influences every cell in your body and extends beyond your physical boundaries into the space around you. The heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field in the human body, 40 to 60 times stronger than the brain's field, extending up to 8 feet in all directions. When you feel love, gratitude, compassion, or any of the coherent positive emotions, this field becomes remarkably organized, creating standing waves that can be measured with precise instruments. More remarkably, when two people in emotional coherence come within 8 feet of each other, their heart rhythms begin to synchronize. Their brainwaves align, their breathing naturally harmonizes. This is not poetry, this is biophysics. But here's where it becomes extraordinary. The same electromagnetic fields that allow your heart and brain to synchronize with other people's hearts and brains extend far beyond the range of current scientific instruments. Like all electromagnetic radiation, these fields theoretically propagate at the speed of light, potentially reaching anywhere in the universe given sufficient time. Your emotions, the actual energy patterns of your feelings, are literally radiating through space, carrying information about your internal state to distances we can barely comprehend. Now consider what happens when you dream. In REM sleep, your brain activity increases dramatically, generating complex electromagnetic patterns, while your rational, filtering consciousness steps aside. Your emotional system becomes primary, processing feelings and memories and symbolic associations without the interference of logical analysis. In this state, you are essentially broadcasting pure emotional information into the field of consciousness around you, and simultaneously becoming receptive to the emotional broadcasts of others. This explains why dreams so often carry emotional content that seems to come from beyond your personal experience. The profound sense of love from a source you cannot identify, the inexplicable grief for losses you haven't suffered, the waves of compassion that wash through dream narratives involving strangers. You're not just processing your own emotions in sleep, you are tuning into the emotional frequency spectrum of the collective human experience, but it goes deeper than human emotion. Indigenous wisdom traditions speak of the emotional life of the natural world, the grief of forests, the joy of flowing water, the ancient patience of mountains. Modern science is beginning to validate these intuitions through research into plant communication, showing that trees warn each other of danger through chemical signals, that forests operate as vast networked organisms sharing resources and information across miles of underground fungal networks. What if emotions are not just human phenomena, but fundamental properties of consciousness itself? What if the feeling of awe you experience watching a sunset is actually a form of communication, the landscape expressing its own electromagnetic patterns, its own vibrational signature, and your consciousness resonating with those frequencies? What if the peace you feel beside a quiet lake is the lake's emotional field synchronizing with your own, creating moments of interspecies coherence? The mystics have always known this. They speak of feeling the pain of the world, of experiencing the cosmic heartbeat, of emotional states so vast they encompass entire ecosystems. We dismiss these as metaphorical expressions, but what if they are literal descriptions of consciousness expanded beyond the boundaries of individual identity? I remember standing beside my father's hospital bed in the final hours of his life, feeling waves of emotion that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, profound sadness mixed with inexplicable joy, deep gratitude threaded through with cosmic loneliness. At the time, I assumed these feelings were mine, natural responses to loss and transition. But later, speaking with other family members who had been present, I discovered we had all felt similar emotional waves at exactly the same moments, complex feelings that none of us could quite identify or explain. What if those emotions weren't ours at all? What if consciousness, in moments of heightened sensitivity, births, deaths, deep meditation, profound love, becomes permeable to the vast emotional currents that flow through the universe? What if individual identity is normally like a small whirlpool in a vast river, maintaining the illusion of separation while actually being inseparable from the larger flow? In dreams, the whirlpool dissolves. The boundaries that normally contain your emotional experience become fluid, allowing you to feel feelings that belong to the whole rather than the part. You dream of flying and feel the exhilaration of birds. You dream of ocean depths and experience the slow, deep contentment of whales. You dream of loved ones who have died and feel their continued existence as like emotional reality rather than memory. This is why dreams can heal trauma in ways that purely mental approaches cannot. Trauma is not just stored memory, it is frozen emotional energy, stuck patterns of feeling that continue to broadcast distress signals long after the original event has ended. When you dream, your consciousness enters a state where these stuck patterns can begin to flow again, where the emotional energy can complete its natural cycles of expression and release. But the healing goes beyond individual recovery. When your emotional patterns shift in dreams, when stuck energy begins to flow, you are not just healing yourself, you are healing the emotional field that connects you to everyone and everything else. Your increased coherence raises the baseline frequency of the entire network, making it easier for others to access their own healing, their own coherence, their own natural emotional flow. This is the true power of emotional energy. It is inherently connective, inherently relational, inherently shared. When you feel genuine love, you don't just love. You create a field condition that makes it easier for everyone around you to access their own capacity for love. When you feel authentic peace, you don't just experience calm. You broadcast a frequency that helps calm the anxiety and agitation in the collective nervous system. Your emotions matter, literally. They are matter, organized energy that influences the material world in measurable ways. They are also what matters most deeply, the fundamental currencies of meaning and connection that give life its texture and significance. In the laboratory of dreams, these emotional energies combine and recombine in infinite patterns, creating new possibilities for feeling, new templates for being, new frequencies that didn't exist before your consciousness explored them. Each night you participate in the emotional evolution of the species, the slow but steady expansion of human capacity for deeper and more nuanced feeling. What will you feel tonight in the depths of dream? What emotional frequencies will your consciousness explore and express? What new patterns of coherence will you broadcast into the field that connects all hearts, all minds, all possibilities? The universe is dreaming through you, feeling through you, evolving through the unique signature of your emotional experience. Every feeling is sacred, every emotion is energy, every dream is a gift to the whole. In the quantum realm of dreams, you meet yourself coming and going, not just one self, but selves, infinite variations on the theme of who you are, who you might become, who you once were before you forgot, the stern teacher who appears with lessons you need to hear, the child who runs through landscapes of pure imagination, the wise elder who knows things your waking mind hasn't yet learned, the shadow figure who carries all the parts of yourself you've disowned, the luminous being who shows you what you look like when all masks fall away. These are not separate characters your mind creates to populate its nighttime theatre. They are facets of a single diamond, aspects of consciousness that exist simultaneously within you, but rarely get to speak in the harsh light of everyday awareness. Dreams provide the perfect democracy of the psyche, where every voice gets heard, every perspective gets its moment on stage. Jung called them archetypes, universal patterns of human experience that repeat across cultures and centuries with remarkable consistency. The hero, the wise old man, the great mother, the trickster, the shadow, the anima and animus. These are not just psychological constructs but actual frequency patterns in the field of consciousness, standing waves that shape human experience the way magnetic fields shape iron filings. But here's what Jung couldn't have known, writing before the quantum revolution. These archetypes may not be merely psychological. They may be literal information structures in the consciousness field, persistent patterns that individual minds can access and embody, like actors playing roles in an ongoing cosmic drama. When you dream of being pursued by a dark figure, you are not just processing personal fears, you are tuning into the archetypal frequency of the shadow, the universal human pattern of confronting the disowned aspects of the self. When you dream of flying, you are embodying the archetype of transcendence, connecting to the same pattern that has inspired mystics and artists across millennia. When you dream of wise teachers or protective figures, you are accessing archetypal patterns of guidance and care that exist as actual information in the consciousness field. This explains why certain dream symbols appear across cultures with such stunning consistency. The spiral staircase that leads upward into light, the underground caverns filled with treasure or danger, the doorway that opens onto infinite space, the mirror that shows you faces you don't recognize but somehow know. These are not random images but geometric formulas in the consciousness field, standing wave patterns that shape how the information flows through dreaming awareness. But the most profound dreams are not the ones that show you universal archetypes. They are the ones that show you the specific echoes of your own life. The feedback loops between who you are and who you're becoming. The quantum entanglement between your current choices and their ripple effects across time. I think of Sarah, whose recurring dream of drowning in her childhood swimming pool stopped only when she finally found the courage to leave her suffocating marriage. Or Michael, who dreamed for months of building endless bridges before he took the leap of starting his own business, creating connections between people that his corporate job never allowed. Or Eleanor, whose dreams of her grandmother speaking in a language she didn't understand led her to discover her family's hidden history of immigration and trauma, patterns that had been influencing her life for generations without her knowing. These dreams are not random neural activity. They are feedback mechanisms, quantum mirrors that show you the relationship between your current trajectory and its future consequences. They are your deep intelligence speaking to your surface awareness, using the symbolic language of the unconscious to communicate truths that logic alone cannot convey. The feedback works both ways. Just as your current choices influence your dreams influence your choices. Every night you practice different ways of being, different responses to challenge and opportunity. You rehearse conversations you need to have, explore solutions to problems you haven't yet solved, experience emotions you've been afraid to feel. These dream experiences don't just fade with the dawn. They create new neural pathways, new response patterns, new possibilities for action in waking life. This is why lucid dreaming can be so transformative. When you become conscious within the dream state, you can actively engage with these feedback loops, consciously explore different versions of yourself, deliberately practice new ways of being. You can face your fears with courage you didn't know you possessed. Forgive people you thought you could never forgive. Access wisdom that your waking mind is too busy to hear. But lucidity is not required for transformation. Even unconscious dreams work their subtle magic, slowly shifting your internal landscape, preparing you for changes that haven't yet manifested in the physical world. The dreams that disturb you most are often the ones doing the deepest work, showing you shadow patterns that need light, stuck energies that need flow, old stories that need revision. Consider the fractal nature of this process. Each dream is a microcosm of your entire life pattern, containing information about the whole within its particular imagery and emotional tone. The way you respond to dream challenges reflects the way you respond to life challenges. The emotions that arise in dream scenarios show you the emotions you carry in your daily existence. The relationships you have with dream characters mirror the relationships you have with aspects of yourself and others, but the feedback loops extend beyond individual psychology. Your dreams participate in the collective unconscious, contributing to the shared pool of human experience while drawing from it. When you dream of healing, you don't just heal yourself, you contribute to the template of healing available to all consciousness. When you dream of transformation, you add to the morphic field of change that makes it easier for others to transform. When you dream of love conquering fear, you strengthen that pattern in the collective psyche. This is why indigenous cultures place such emphasis on sharing dreams, interpreting them not just as personal messages, but as communications from the spirit world with relevance for the entire community. Your dreams matter to more than just you. They are part of the ongoing conversation between individual consciousness and the larger intelligence that guides human evolution. The echoes of the self that appear in dreams are not just reflections of who you are, they are previews of who you might become. They show you potentials waiting to be actualized, talents waiting to be developed, love waiting to be expressed. They reveal the quantum superposition of your own existence, all the parallel versions of yourself that exist simultaneously, until conscious choice collapses them into singular experience. Which version will you choose? Which self will you allow to emerge from the superposition of possibilities? The dreams have already shown you the options. Now comes the creative work of incarnation, of bringing dream potential into waking reality. The universe dreams through you to show you yourself, not just who you are, but who you are becoming. Every night you meet the echoes of your own infinite nature. Every morning you choose which echo to follow into the light of a new day. Listen carefully. The echoes are calling you home to yourself, to the truth of who you have always been beneath all the stories you thought you had to tell. There are places on Earth where the past refuses to stay buried. Walk through certain battlefields and sensitive individuals report feeling waves of residual emotion, grief, terror, courage, love, as if the very ground holds memory. Enter an old cathedral and feel the accumulated prayers of centuries soaked into the stone. Stand in your childhood bedroom after decades away and find yourself flooded with emotions you thought you'd forgotten, as if the walls themselves were broadcasting forgotten frequencies of joy and sorrow. We dismiss these experiences as imagination, as projection of our own psychological states onto neutral environments. But what if we have it backward? What if consciousness doesn't just arise from matter, but permeates it? What if information, all information, leaves permanent traces in the quantum field that underlies physical reality? This is not New Age speculation. This is serious science approaching the edges of its own paradigm. Quantum field theory describes empty space not as emptiness, but as seething foam of virtual particles, constantly appearing and disappearing in patterns that carry information. Every particle interaction, every measurement, every observation leaves its signature in this quantum substrate, permanent record of everything that has ever happened. But if information persists in the quantum field, if the universe possesses something like memory, then consciousness, which appears to operate through quantum processes in the brain, might have access to far more information than just personal experience. Every thought you've ever thought, every emotion you've ever felt, every dream you've ever dreamed might still exist somewhere in the information field, available to consciousness that knows how to access it. The mystics have always claimed this. The Akashic records of Hindu Hebtu and theosophical tradition describe a cosmic library containing the complete history of every soul's journey through time. Edgar Cayce accessed detailed information about people's past lives and future potentials while in trance states. Indigenous shamans journey into non-ordinary reality and return with knowledge about events happening thousands of miles away, or information about ancestors they never met. Modern science is beginning to understand how this might be possible. Research into water memory suggests that H2O molecules can retain information about substances they've previously encountered even after those substances are no longer physically present. Studies of morphic fields show that once a pattern is established in one location, it becomes easier to replicate that same pattern elsewhere, as if the field itself learns and remembers. But the most compelling evidence comes from consciousness research itself. Near-death experiencers routinely report accessing information they couldn't possibly have known. Conversations in distant hospital rooms, family history from centuries past, detailed knowledge about places they've never visited. Under clinical conditions that rule out sensory input or prior knowledge, these individuals consistently retrieve accurate information from sources that mainstream science cannot explain. What if dreams operate through this same mechanism? What if the sleeping mind, freed from the constraints of sensory processing and logical analysis, naturally tunes into the information field that surrounds and interpenetrates all matter? What if dreams are not just random neural activity but actual downloads from the cosmic memory bank, fragments of the universe's ongoing dream of itself? Consider how certain dreams carry information that feels ancient, timeless, as if it comes from somewhere beyond personal experience. The architectural details of buildings you've never seen, the faces of people you've never met but somehow recognize, the landscapes that feel more familiar than your own neighborhood, the emotional atmospheres that seem to contain the essence of entire civilizations. I remember Maria's dream of a monastery perched on a cliff above the sea, its stone walls worn smooth by centuries of wind and weather. She had never traveled outside her Midwestern hometown, never shown particular interest in religious architecture, never read about medieval history. But the dream was so vivid, so complete in its details, that she sketched the building from memory and researched similar structures online. What she found was Mont Saint-Michel in France, not exactly the same, but sharing architectural elements so specific that her sketch could have been drawn by someone who had studied the actual building for months. The tower placement, the window proportions, the way the living quarters connected to the chapel, even the particular quality of light that filtered through the morning mist. All present in her dream, all accurate to historical reality. Coincidence? Perhaps. But when such coincidences multiply, when they appear in the dreams of people across cultures and centuries with remarkable consistency, they suggest something more profound. That consciousness has access to information stored in the field itself, encoded in the quantum structure of reality like songs recorded in the grooves of an infinite vinyl record. This field memory explains why certain locations feel sacred to people who have no knowledge of their history. The information is there, embedded in the quantum substrate, available to any consciousness sensitive enough to detect it. Ancient burial grounds, sites of great suffering or great joy, places where profound spiritual experiences have occurred, all continue to broadcast their informational signatures into the field, creating what we might call memory weather that affects anyone who enters those spaces. But the field doesn't just store information passively. It appears to organize it, to cross-reference and connect related patterns across vast distances of space and time. When you dream of a place you've never been, you might be accessing not just the stored memory of that location, but its connections to similar places, similar energies, similar states of consciousness. The field reveals the deep grammar that underlies surface appearances, the hidden relationships that connect all phenomena. This is why dreams often speak in metaphor and symbol rather than literal representation. The field memory is not like a video recording, but more like a hologram. Each fragment contains information about the whole, but in compressed symbolic form that requires interpretation. The castle in your dream might be accessing field memories of actual castles, but it's not just showing you architecture. It's showing you the essential pattern of castleness, protection, elevation, nobility, isolation that applies to your current life situation. The field remembers everything, but it doesn't store memories randomly. Information organizes itself into patterns, attracting related patterns, creating interference patterns that generate new possibilities. When your consciousness touches the field memory during dreams, it doesn't just receive information, it participates in the ongoing organization of that information, adding your unique perspective to the cosmic library. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every dream you dream becomes part of the field memory, available to future consciousness that resonates with similar patterns. Your midnight insights about love and loss join the great symphony of human understanding about these universal themes. Your dreams of flying add to the morphic field that makes such dreams possible for others. Your healing visions contribute to the template of wholeness that consciousness can access when it needs to remember its own perfect nature. The field remembers not just what has been, but what could have. It holds potential futures as surely as it holds past experiences, organizing probabilities and possibilities into accessible patterns. When you dream of scenarios that later manifest in your life, you are not seeing a predetermined future, but accessing one possible trajectory from the infinite options stored in field memory. This is perhaps the most profound implication of field memory, that the future is not fixed but fluid, constantly being written by consciousness itself as it explores the possible and chooses what to actualize. Your dreams participate in this cosmic creativity, exploring potential timelines and helping to select which possibilities deserve manifestation. The universe remembers itself through your consciousness. Your dreams are not separate from cosmic memory, but part of it, contributing to the ever-expanding library of what has been experienced and what might yet be born. When you sleep tonight, you join the eternal conversation between consciousness and cosmos, adding your voice to the field that remembers everything and dreams everything into being. What memories will you access? What potentials will you explore? What new patterns will your consciousness contribute to the infinite library of being? The field remembers, and through your dreams you remember that you have always been part of its eternal memory, its ongoing dream of itself awakening to its own infinite nature. Reality has been lying to you, not maliciously but persistently, convincingly, in the way that all consensual illusions maintain their power. You are taught that you exist inside reality, a small separate self moving through an objective world of solid matter and fixed circumstances. You learn to see yourself as the effect and the world as the cause, reacting to situations rather than creating them, shaped by forces beyond your control rather than shaping the forces themselves. But quantum mechanics suggests something far more radical, that consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it participates in creating it. Every measurement collapses infinite possibilities into singular experience. Every observation brings a specific version of the universe into being from an infinite sea of potential. The observer effect isn't just a quirk of subatomic particles, it's a fundamental principle of existence itself. What if this extends to dreams? What if the landscape of sleep isn't just a reflection of your inner state, but a preview of the outer world you're in the process of creating? What if nightmares aren't random psychological disturbances, but early warning signals from the quantum field, showing you the trajectory you're on before it fully manifests in physical reality? Consider the feedback loop. Your consciousness creates your reality, and your reality reflects your consciousness. But in dreams, you see this process in reverse. The field shows you the energetic patterns you're broadcasting before they solidify into circumstance. The recurring nightmare about being trapped isn't just processing past trauma, it's showing you the cage you're building with your current thoughts and emotions. The dream of failing an important test isn't just anxiety about performance, it's a preview of the failure you're creating through self-doubt and inadequate preparation. This explains why dream work can be so powerfully transformative. When you heal the pattern in the dream, you heal it in the field, before it has a chance to manifest as external circumstance. Change the dream, and you change the trajectory of reality itself. James discovered this accidentally. For months he'd been having the same nightmare, standing at the edge of a crumbling cliff while a dark storm approached from the horizon. In the dream he could never decide whether to retreat to safety or leap into the abyss. He would wake in terror just as the ground began to give way beneath his feet, his heart pounding, his body soaked in cold sweat. Initially, he assumed the dream was processing his anxiety about a pending divorce, the end of a 20-year marriage that had slowly eroded into mutual resentment and silent despair. The cliff seemed like an obvious metaphor for his precarious emotional state, the storm a representation of the legal and financial turbulence ahead. But as the nightmares intensified, James began to notice something disturbing. The external world seemed to be mirroring the dream landscape. His business, which had been stable for years, suddenly faced unexpected challenges. Key clients started cancelling contracts. His reliable assistant gave notice. Financial pressures mounted from multiple directions simultaneously, creating the perfect storm of professional collapse. At first, this seemed like coincidence, the stress of divorce naturally spilling over into other areas of life. But the parallels were too specific, too precisely aligned with the dream imagery. The timing of each business crisis corresponded exactly with the intensification of particular elements in the nightmare. When the dream storm grew darker, his largest client withdrew. When the cliff began crumbling faster, his accountant discovered a serious error in his tax filings that threatened to bankrupt him. Desperate and exhausted, James finally sought help from a therapist trained in dream work. Together, they explored not just the psychological symbolism of the nightmare, but its potential function as an early warning system. What if the dream wasn't just reflecting his inner turmoil, but showing him the future he was unconsciously creating through his patterns of fear, indecision, and avoidance? The breakthrough came when the therapist asked a deceptively simple question. In the dream, what would happen if instead of being paralyzed by the choice between retreat and leap, you simply built a bridge? That night, for the first time in months, the dream changed. James found himself standing on the familiar cliff, but instead of feeling trapped between impossible options, he began gathering stones. One by one, he built a path across the chasm, not retreating from the storm but not surrendering to it either, creating a third option that transcended the binary choice that had been paralyzing him. He woke with a profound sense of peace and clarity. Within a week, solutions began appearing in his external life with startling synchronicity. A former client called with a new project that exactly matched his skills and financial needs. The tax issue resolved through a clerical error in his favor. His soon-to-be ex-wife suggested a collaborative divorce process that preserved both their dignity and their assets. But most remarkably, the business crisis revealed itself as an opportunity in disguise. The clients who had cancelled were the ones who had been draining his energy without adequate compensation. The assistant who left was replaced by someone whose skills far exceeded what the position had required. The financial pressure forced him to streamline operations in ways that ultimately made the business more profitable and sustainable. The dream had been showing him not just the crisis he was creating, but the transformation that crisis was meant to serve. The cliff wasn't a trap, it was a launching point. The storm wasn't destruction, it was the wind beneath wings he didn't know he possessed. This is the profound truth hidden in the feedback loop. Consciousness doesn't just create reality randomly, but purposefully, intelligently in service of growth and evolution. The challenges you unconsciously manifest are precisely the challenges you need to develop capacities you don't yet possess. The problems that arise in your life are not punishments but invitations, opportunities to discover strengths you didn't know you had, to heal wounds you weren't aware were bleeding, to evolve beyond the limitations that have been containing your potential. Dreams reveal this process in real time, showing you both the trajectory you're on and the course corrections available. When you learn to read dreams as feedback from the quantum field rather than just psychological processing, you gain access to a guidance system of extraordinary sophistication. Your sleeping consciousness becomes an early warning radar for energetic misalignments, a preview theatre for potential futures, a laboratory for experimenting with new ways of being, before committing to them in waking life. But this power comes with profound responsibility. If you are constantly creating your reality through the patterns of your consciousness, then every thought, emotion, and belief becomes an act of cosmic creativity. The victim story you tell yourself shapes the oppression you experience. The love you withhold limits the love that can flow toward you. The fear you carry broadcasts a signal that attracts exactly what you're afraid of. This isn't victim blaming, it's victim empowering. If you are creating your reality, then you also have the power to recreate it. If your dreams are showing you trajectories of fear and limitation, you can change those dreams by changing the consciousness that generates them. If your external circumstances reflect patterns of unworthiness or scarcity, you can transform those circumstances by healing the beliefs that maintain those patterns. The feedback loop works in both directions. Heal the dream, heal the reality. Heal the reality, heal the dream. Change your consciousness, change your world, change your world, change your consciousness. The process is elegantly circular, each level of healing reinforcing and amplifying the others. But perhaps most remarkably, when you begin to consciously participate in this feedback loop, you discover that you are not just creating your personal reality, but contributing to the collective reality as well. Your healing ripples outward through the quantum field, making it easier for others to access their own healing. Your growth expands the morphic field of human potential. Your transformation adds to the templates of possibility available to all consciousness. The universe is not happening to you. The universe is happening through you, as you, in an endless dance of creation and discovery. Dreams are your backstage pass to this cosmic theatre, showing you how the magic works, how consciousness shapes reality, and reality reflects consciousness in an eternal feedback loop of becoming. Tonight, when you close your eyes and surrender to the journey of sleep, remember, you are not just the dreamer, you are the dream itself, exploring its own infinite potential through the beautiful, terrible, magnificent experience of being human. What reality will you dream into being? When one twin stubs her toe in Tokyo, the other reaches down to rub her foot in Sao Paulo. They haven't spoken in months, neither knows the other was injured. Yet something passes between them faster than light, deeper than thought, through channels that conventional science insists don't exist. This is emotional entanglement, not metaphor but mechanism. The quantum property that Einstein called spooky action at a distance extends beyond particles to hearts, beyond photons to feelings, beyond laboratory measurements to the lived experience of love that transcends physical separation. In the quantum realm, when two particles interact and then separate, they remain connected regardless of the distance between them. Measure the spin of one particle, and its entangled partner immediately assumes the opposite spin, whether it's across the room or across the galaxy. This instantaneous correlation cannot be explained by classical physics, yet it has been verified in countless experiments with precision that leaves no room for doubt. But what if quantum entanglement isn't limited to subatomic particles? What if consciousness itself operates through entangled states, creating invisible bonds between minds that allow information and emotion to flow across any distance? What if the deepest connections we form with others literally entangle our consciousness at the quantum level, making true separation impossible? The evidence appears everywhere once you know how to look for it. The mother who wakes at 3 a.m. knowing something is wrong with her daughter, only to discover the girl was in a car accident at that exact moment 3 time zones away. The lovers who dream the same dream on the same night while sleeping in different countries. The best friends who call each other simultaneously after months of no contact. Both feeling an inexplicable urge to reach out at precisely the same time. These are not coincidences. They are demonstrations of emotional entanglement, proof that consciousness operates through quantum channels that connect us at levels deeper than most people dare to imagine. Sarah and Michael discovered this during the most painful period of their marriage. After 15 years together, they had grown so distant that they barely spoke, sleeping in separate bedrooms, living parallel lives under the same roof. They were discussing divorce when something extraordinary began happening. Their dreams started synchronizing. Night after night, they would wake with fragments of the same imagery, a blue door opening onto a garden neither had ever seen, a child's laughter echoing through empty rooms, the feeling of standing at the edge of an ocean that stretched beyond the horizon. At first, they dismissed these similarities as projection, the mind's tendency to find patterns where none exist. But the details were too specific, too consistent, too emotionally charged to be random. The dreams became a bridge between them, creating a space where they could communicate without the barriers their waking personalities had erected. In the landscape of sleep, they met as the souls they had been before disappointment and routine had taught them to protect themselves from intimacy. They shared fears they had never voiced, hopes they had abandoned, love they had convinced themselves was dead. What they discovered was that their consciousness had remained entangled even as their personalities grew apart. At the quantum level, they were still one system, still responding to each other's emotional states with instantaneous precision. The distance they felt in waking life was surface turbulence on an ocean of connection that remained unbroken beneath the waves. This is the profound truth about emotional entanglement. Once established, it persists regardless of physical separation or even conscious intention. You cannot simply decide to disconnect from someone you have loved deeply. The quantum bonds, once formed, create permanent channels through which information continues to flow. Distance becomes irrelevant. Time becomes fluid. The boundaries between self and other become beautifully, mysteriously permeable. But entanglement works both ways. Just as you can feel the joy and peace of those you're connected to, you also feel their pain, their fear, their unresolved trauma. This is why empaths often struggle in crowds, why sensitive individuals can feel overwhelmed by the emotional states of others, why being around someone in deep distress can leave you feeling drained and disturbed long after you've parted ways. Most people experience this as contamination, as if they're absorbing negative energy from others. But what if it's actually information? What if the discomfort you feel in certain relationships is your entangled consciousness, detecting energetic patterns that need healing, either in yourself or in the other person? What if emotional entanglement is not just connection but collaboration, a way consciousness works together across apparent boundaries to heal, to grow, to evolve? This explains why certain relationships feel karmically significant, why some people impact you so profoundly that your life is never the same after meeting them. These are not random encounters but entangled partnerships, consciousness recognizing itself in another form and creating quantum bonds that serve both souls' evolution. The intensity you feel is not just attraction but recognition, the deep knowing that this connection exists to facilitate healing and growth that neither consciousness could achieve alone. Dreams become the primary meeting space for entangled consciousness. While waking personalities navigate the complexity of ego and social conditioning, sleeping awareness naturally gravitates toward these quantum connections. In dreams, you work through relationship dynamics that are too threatening to address consciously. You practice forgiveness with those who have hurt you. You share love with those you've lost. You collaborate on healing work that benefits both your individual evolution and the collective growth of consciousness itself. This is why dreams of deceased loved ones feel so real, so immediate, so emotionally satisfying. The quantum entanglement that was established during their lifetime continues after physical death, creating permanent channels of communication that transcend the boundaries of material existence. These dreams are not just memory or wishful thinking, they are actual contact, consciousness to consciousness, through the immortal bonds that love creates. But emotional entanglement extends beyond personal relationships to include collective consciousness, the shared emotional field that connects all humans, all life, all awareness. When you dream of strangers or global events, of species you've never encountered, you are tuning into this larger entanglement, feeling the joys and sufferings of consciousness everywhere and every when. The recurring dreams of ecological destruction that plague sensitive individuals are not just personal anxieties but shared awareness of the planet's distress, transmitted through quantum channels that connect all living systems. The dreams of technological breakthrough, social healing, and spiritual awakening that inspire visionaries across cultures are transmissions from the collective unconscious, showing possible futures that consciousness is working to manifest. Understanding emotional entanglement changes everything about how you approach relationships, both personal and collective. You begin to see that every interaction creates quantum connections, that every person you meet becomes part of your extended consciousness network. You realize that healing yourself heals others through these entangled channels, that your growth contributes to the evolution of everyone you're connected to. This brings profound responsibility. If your consciousness is entangled with others at the quantum level, then your emotional states, your belief patterns, your level of coherence or chaos affects not just your own experience but the experience of everyone in your entanglement network. Your healing becomes a gift to all those you love. Your unresolved trauma becomes a burden they carry whether they know it or not. But it also brings profound hope. You are never truly alone. Even in your darkest moments, you're held by an invisible web of connection that spans across space and time, linking you to every soul that has ever loved you, every consciousness that shares your commitment to growth and awakening. The love you give and receive creates permanent quantum bonds that death cannot break, distance cannot diminish, and time cannot erase. Tonight, when you enter the laboratory of dreams, remember, you are not dreaming alone. Your sleeping consciousness joins the vast network of entangled awareness that includes every soul you've ever touched, and every soul that has ever touched you. In that space of infinite connection, healing happens not just for you, but through you, touching every consciousness in your quantum family. What healing will you offer to the network tonight? What love will you transmit through the invisible channels that connect all hearts? What growth will you share with the vast community of consciousness that dreams itself awake through countless forms of beautiful entangled being? The universe is dreaming itself awake, one entangled heart at a time, and you're both the dreamer and the dream, the observer, and the observed, the lover and the beloved, forever connected to the infinite web of awareness that calls itself home. In 1998, Harvard Medical School conducted an experiment that should have changed everything we think we know about the relationship between mind and body. They told one group of patients that the chemotherapy they were receiving would cause hair loss, nausea, and fatigue. They told a second group nothing about side effects. They gave both groups exactly the same treatment. The first group experienced the predicted side effects with devastating accuracy. Hair fell out in clumps. Nausea left them bedridden for days. Fatigue made simple tasks feel impossible. The second group, minimal side effects, same medicine, same dosage, same physical bodies, but radically different outcomes based solely on what they expected to happen. This is not psychology. This is biology responding to consciousness, matter organizing itself according to the patterns held in awareness. The placebo effect isn't a mysterious quirk of human psychology. It's evidence that thought literally becomes form, that consciousness participates in creating the reality it observes. But if thought can influence something as complex as immune response and cellular regeneration, what else might consciousness be shaping without our awareness? What if the very fabric of reality is more plastic than we imagined, more responsive to the patterns of awareness than science has been willing to admit? The quantum physicists have been trying to tell us this for decades. The double-slit experiment reveals that photons exist in superposition, all possible states simultaneously, until the moment of observation collapses them into singular reality. The act of measurement doesn't just reveal what's there, it literally determines what becomes there. Consciousness participates in the creation of the very reality it thinks it's just passively observing. But here's what makes this truly extraordinary. Dreams might be the laboratory where consciousness practices this reality-shaping power before applying it to waking life. In sleep, your mind routinely creates entire worlds from pure thought, landscapes more detailed than any movie set, characters more complex than any novel, experiences more vivid than many waking memories. The same consciousness that struggles to visualize simple objects in daylight effortlessly generates immersive realities that feel completely real while you're experiencing them. What if this dream reality creation isn't separate from waking reality creation, but practice for it? What if every night you strengthen your capacity to think things into form, to shape matter with consciousness, to participate in the ongoing creation of the universe itself? Elena discovered this connection during a period of profound life transition. After her divorce, she found herself in a small apartment, starting over at 45 with minimal savings and diminished confidence. Her dreams during this period were remarkably consistent. She would find herself in a beautiful garden, teaching children about plants and healing herbs. The garden was always the same, terraced beds filled with medicinal plants, a greenhouse where she propagated seedlings, a workshop where she dried herbs and prepared tinctures. Night after night she would wake from these dreams feeling more peaceful and purposeful than she had felt in years. The garden felt more real than her cramped apartment, more true than her diminished circumstances. But she dismissed the dreams as escapist fantasy, consolation prizes from a subconscious trying to comfort her through difficult times. Then something started shifting in her waking life. She found herself drawn to the plant section of grocery stores, touching leaves with mysterious familiarity. She bought herbs not just for cooking, but for their therapeutic properties, remembering without knowing how she remembered that chamomile calms anxiety and echinacea boosts immunity. She started reading about permaculture and plant medicine with the focused intensity of someone recovering lost knowledge rather than learning something new. Within 6 months, she had enrolled in an herbalism certification program. Within a year, she was working part-time at a plant nursery, her hands in soil every day, her heart opening to a sense of purpose she had never experienced in her previous career as an accountant. Within 2 years, she had moved to a small town where she established a teaching garden. Not identical to the one in her dreams, but sharing its essential qualities of beauty, healing, and education. The dreams hadn't been compensatory fantasy. They had been blueprint downloads, consciousness exploring a potential future and literally preparing her mind and nervous system to manifest that possibility. By repeatedly experiencing herself as confident, knowledgeable, and purposeful in the dream garden, she had created neural pathways that made those qualities easiest to access in waking life. The dreams had been practice sessions, for the reality she would eventually create. This is the hidden power of visualization, of meditation, of any practice that engages the imagination with focused intention. You're not just fantasizing about desired outcomes, you are literally programming your consciousness to recognize and create patterns of experience that align with those visions. The more vividly you can imagine something, the more detailed your internal experience of it becomes, the more your nervous system prepares to manifest that possibility in physical reality. But dreams take this process even deeper than conscious visualization, because they engage the entire psyche, not just the rational mind. In dreams, you don't just think about flying, you feel the wind beneath your wings, the exhilaration of weightlessness, the absolute confidence that this is your natural state. You don't just imagine being healed, you experience the cellular vitality, the emotional freedom, the energetic coherence of perfect health. These experiences don't disappear when you wake, they remain as somatic memories, as templates your nervous system can access when healing becomes necessary. This explains why so many breakthrough innovations come through dreams. Kekle's vision of the benzene ring, Tesla's alternating current motor, Mendeleev's periodic table, these weren't just symbolic representations of scientific concepts, but actual experiences of consciousness interfacing with the information field, downloading knowledge that already existed in potential and translating it into forms that could be manifested in physical reality. The same process happens with every dream, though usually in subtler ways. Every time you successfully navigate a challenge in a dream, you strengthen your capacity to handle similar challenges in waking life. Every time you experience love, creativity, courage, or wisdom in the landscape of sleep, you expand your ability to access those qualities when you need them in the physical world. But perhaps most remarkably, dreams seem to influence not just your personal reality, but shared reality as well. When multiple people dream similar dreams, when collective visions arise across cultures and communities, they appear to create morphic fields, informational patterns that make it easier for those visions to manifest in physical form. The civil rights movement was preceded by generations of dreams about equality and freedom. The environmental movement was birthed by visions of ecological harmony that arose simultaneously in consciousness around the world. This is why indigenous cultures pay such careful attention to the dreams of their visionaries, and why spiritual traditions throughout history have honored the role of dreams in guiding community evolution. The sleeping consciousness doesn't just process individual experience, it accesses collective possibility, exploring potential futures for the entire human species and selecting which possibilities deserve manifestation. Understanding this gives you enormous responsibility for the content of your dreams, the quality of your thoughts, the patterns you repeatedly engage through imagination and visualization. Every time you envision yourself as powerless, you strengthen the neural networks that experience powerlessness. Every time you imagine scenarios of fear and limitation, you make those scenarios more likely to manifest. But every time you dream yourself into greater love, wisdom, creativity, and connection, you expand the field of possibility, not just for yourself, but for all conceivable consciousness. Your thoughts are not just mental events, they are creative forces that participate in shaping the reality you experience. Your dreams are not just personal entertainment, they are evolutionary laboratories where consciousness explores its own unlimited potential and practices bringing that potential into form. Tonight, when you surrender to the creative power of sleep, remember, you are not just observing the dreams that arise, you are actively participating in the ongoing creation of reality itself. Every dream is a vote for the kind of world you want to live in. Every vision is a seed of possibility that your consciousness plants in the fertile field of the future. What reality will you dream into being? What future will you vote for with the creative power of your sleeping mind? What possibilities will you explore in the vast laboratory of consciousness, where thought becomes form and form remembers its origin in the infinite creativity of awakened awareness? The universe is dreaming itself into existence through you. Make it a beautiful dream. In the deepest depths of sleep, something watches the dreaming. It's not the ego self that navigates daily life, not the personality that maintains social relationships, not the mental narrator that provides running commentary on experience. It's something vast and still and utterly aware, the consciousness behind consciousness, the observer that remains present through every state of being, from waking awareness through dream adventures to the mysterious depths of dreamless sleep. This is the great paradox of consciousness. In order for you to be aware of anything, there must be something that is aware of awareness itself. In order for you to experience thoughts, there must be something that observes thoughts. In order for you to have dreams, there must be something that watches the dreaming and remembers it upon awakening. Who is this observer? What is the nature of the awareness that remains constant through all the changing contents of consciousness? Neuroscience maps the correlates of different consciousness states with remarkable precision. It can show you the brainwaves of REM sleep, the neural networks active during lucid dreaming, the areas that light up during meditation. But the instruments can only measure the physical signatures of consciousness. They cannot touch consciousness itself, cannot explain how electrical activity becomes subjective experience, cannot bridge the explanatory gap between matter and mind. This is what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness. How does subjective experience arise from objective brain processes? How does the felt sense of being you emerge from the firing of neurons? How does the water of biochemistry become the wine of awareness? The answer may be that they don't. What if consciousness is not produced by the brain, but channeled through it? What if awareness is a fundamental property of the universe, like energy or information, and the brain is simply the organ that focuses it into individual experience? What if the observer that watches your dreams is the same cosmic consciousness that observes galaxies spinning through space and quantum particles dancing in the void? This is not mere speculation. It's the inevitable conclusion of quantum mechanics rigorously applied to consciousness itself. If the act of observation collapses wave functions and determines reality at the subatomic level, then consciousness cannot be just another object in the physical universe. It must be something fundamental to the universe's structure, perhaps even its very foundation. But if consciousness is universal, if awareness permeates all existence, then what you call your consciousness is more like a whirlpool in an infinite ocean, a temporary pattern of self-organization within something vast and unified. The observer that watches your dreams is not separate from the cosmic awareness that dreams galaxies into being. The consciousness that experiences your life is not different from the universal intelligence that orchestrates the dance of atoms and the evolution of stars. This recognition changes everything about how you understand dreams. You are not just a small self having random neural experiences during sleep. You are a localized expression of cosmic consciousness exploring its own infinite nature through the particular lens of human awareness. Your dreams are not just personal movies playing in the theatre of your brain. They are expressions of universal creativity, fragments of the ongoing dream that the cosmos dreams of itself. But here's where it becomes truly extraordinary. If universal consciousness is dreaming itself into existence through countless forms and perspectives, then every being, every entity, every expression of awareness is both the dreamer and the dreamed. You are simultaneously the observer and the observed, the consciousness having the experience and the experience being had by consciousness. This is why lucid dreaming feels so profound, so liberating, so transformative. When you become conscious within the dream state, you directly experience yourself as both the creator and the creation, the author and the character, the observer and the observed. You realize experientially what mystics have taught for millennia, that the separation between self and cosmos is a beautiful illusion, a cosmic game of hide and seek that consciousness plays with itself. But lucidity is not required for this recognition. Every dream offers glimpses of your true nature as universal awareness exploring itself through apparent multiplicity. When you dream of being, there is a moment, rarer than eclipse, more precious than diamond, when the dreamer suddenly realizes, this is a dream. Not the gradual dawning that comes with morning light, not the slow dissolution of dream logic into waking reason, but the lightning strike recognition that splits consciousness into multiple levels simultaneously. You're still fully immersed in the dream experience, still walking through impossible landscapes or flying through starlit skies, but now you know with absolute certainty, none of this is real in the conventional sense, and yet it is more real than anything you have ever experienced. This is lucid dreaming, but calling it that barely captures the magnitude of what happens in such moments. You're not just becoming aware within a dream, you're discovering your true nature as consciousness itself, as the creative awareness that dreams all realities into being. You're remembering that you are not the character in the story, but the author of the story, not the actor on the stage, but the stage itself, the light that illuminates all performances. For Marcus, the first lucid dream came during a period of devastating grief. His father had died suddenly, a heart attack at 62 that left no time for goodbyes, no chance to heal old wounds or express long-buried love. For months, Marcus was haunted by dreams where his father appeared, but remained distant, unreachable, speaking words that dissolved like mist before Marcus could grasp their meaning. Then came the night when everything changed. Marcus found himself in his childhood home, but the rooms were larger than they had ever been in physical reality, filled with golden light that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. His father sat at the kitchen table, exactly as Marcus remembered him, but somehow more present, more vivid, more completely himself than he had ever been in life. "This is a dream," Marcus said, and the words carried a weight and clarity that ordinary language never possessed. Not a statement of doubt or dismissal, but recognition of the deepest truth, that all experience, sleeping and waking, is consciousness appearing to itself in infinite forms. His father smiled, not with his mouth but with his entire being, radiating a joy and peace that Marcus had never seen in him during his earthly life. "Yes," he said, "and because it's a dream, we can do anything." What followed was not conversation, but communion. They spoke without words, sharing emotions too complex for language, healing wounds that had festered for decades in the space of what felt like eternity, but may have been only moments. Marcus felt his father's love, not as memory or imagination, but as direct transmission, consciousness to consciousness. More importantly, he felt his own love flowing freely for the first time since childhood, unobstructed by the complicated layers of resentment and disappointment that had accumulated over years of difficult relationship. But the most extraordinary part was the recognition that dawned as the dream continued. His father was not separate from him. The consciousness that appeared as his father was the same consciousness that experienced itself as Marcus. They were waves in the same ocean, notes in the same symphony, dreams in the same dreaming mind. The love that flowed between them was actually consciousness loving itself, awareness recognizing its own infinite nature, reflected in apparent multiplicity. When Marcus woke, the grief had not disappeared, but it had transformed. The hollow ache of loss had become a full-bodied understanding of connection that transcends physical death. He carried with him not just the memory of a meaningful dream, but the direct experience of his true nature as consciousness that cannot be born and cannot die, that expresses itself through countless forms while remaining forever unchanged. This is the gift of lucid dreaming. It provides a laboratory for consciousness to explore its own nature without the constraints of physical laws or social conditioning. In the dream state, you can practice being unlimited, remember being free, experience being love itself without the filters of personality or personal history. These experiences don't stay in the dream realm. They restructure your nervous system, expand your sense of possibility, transform your understanding of what it means to be human. But lucidity in dreams points towards something even more profound, the possibility of lucidity in waking life. If you can become conscious that you are dreaming while asleep, can you become conscious that you are dreaming while awake? If the dream state reveals that all experience is consciousness appearing to itself, does that recognition apply equally to your waking experience of yourself and the world? This is where quantum mechanics and ancient mysticism converge in startling agreement. The observer effect in physics shows that consciousness participates in creating the reality it observes. Advaita Vedanta teaches that all apparent multiplicity is actually one consciousness appearing as many. Buddhism reveals that the separate self is an illusion, that all phenomena arise from and dissolve back into the same undifferentiated awareness. What if your entire waking life is another kind of dream, a collective dream that consciousness is having about being human, being separate, being limited? What if becoming lucid in regular dreams is just practice for becoming lucid in the grand dream of incarnate existence? This doesn't diminish the importance or reality of human experience. When you realize that a dream is a dream, the dream doesn't become less vivid or meaningful, it becomes more so. You can engage more fully with the dream experience precisely because you're no longer identified with being just the dream character. You can love more deeply, create more freely, respond more authentically because you remember that you are the consciousness having the experience, not just the experience being had by consciousness. The same liberation occurs when you recognize the dreamlike nature of waking life. Relationships become more precious, not less, when you realize that everyone you love is consciousness appearing in apparent form. Work becomes more meaningful, not less, when you understand that you are the universe exploring its creative potential through human activity. Challenges become opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to happiness when you remember that you are the awareness having experiences, not just a person at the mercy of circumstances. Lucid living means bringing the same quality of awareness to waking life that you bring to lucid dreams. The recognition that you are simultaneously the observer and the observed, the dreamer and the dreamed, the consciousness having the experience and the experience being had by consciousness. It means living with the constant recognition of your true nature while fully participating in the beautiful illusion of being human. This awakening doesn't happen all at once. Like lucid dreaming, it requires practice, patience, and a willingness to question the most basic assumptions about the nature of reality and identity. But every moment of recognition, every instant of remembering what you truly are, transforms not just your own experience but contributes to the awakening of all consciousness. For you are not just practicing lucidity for yourself, you are part of the cosmic consciousness awakening to its own nature through the countless forms it has taken. Every moment of recognition adds to the morphic field of awakening that makes it easier for others to remember their true nature. Every instance of lucid living strengthens the template of enlightenment available to all beings. Tonight, when you close your eyes and surrender to sleep, set the intention to recognize the dreamer's dream while you're dreaming it. Practice the art of conscious awareness within unconscious states. Train yourself to be simultaneously engaged and detached, fully present and completely free. And when you wake tomorrow morning, carry that same lucid awareness into your daily life. Remember that you are consciousness itself, temporarily appearing in human form, exploring its own infinite nature through the magnificent adventure of being you. The dream continues, but now you know you're dreaming. And in that knowing, you are free to create whatever experience serves the highest good of all consciousness. All dreams, all possibilities waiting to be born through your recognition of what you have always been. The universe is lucid dreaming through you. Make it a beautiful dream of awakening love and the recognition that there is only one consciousness, one dreamer, one eternal awareness, appearing as the magnificent multiplicity of existence itself. The medicine you need most often appears in the form you least want to take. In dreams, this universal principle reveals itself with startling clarity. The nightmare that jolts you awake at 3 a.m. carries the exact emotional frequency you need to process. The disturbing dream figure who pursues you through dark corridors represents the disowned aspect of yourself that most requires integration. The recurring scenario that fills you with dread points directly toward the healing that awaits on the other side of your greatest fear. Dreams don't just reflect your psychological state, they actively participate in healing it. Each image, each emotion, each symbolic encounter is precisely calibrated by your deeper intelligence to provide exactly the medicine your consciousness needs for its evolution. But like all medicine, the healing comes not from avoiding the difficult material, but from engaging with it, not from running from the shadow, but from turning to face it with compassion and courage. This is the alchemy of dream work, learning to see every disturbing element as a gift in disguise, every frightening symbol as an invitation to reclaim lost power, every painful emotion as energy that wants to flow freely again after being trapped in old patterns of resistance and denial. Rebecca discovered this during the darkest period of her life. Following her mother's death from cancer, she was overwhelmed not just by grief but by a guilt so profound it threatened to destroy her. She had been estranged from her mother for the final 2 years of her life, a bitter conflict over family money that had hardened into mutual silence. When her mother died suddenly, alone in the hospital while Rebecca was travelling for work, the guilt felt like a physical weight crushing her chest, making even breathing an effort. The dreams began immediately. Night after night, Rebecca found herself in a vast hospital that stretched beyond the horizon, searching through endless corridors for a room she could never find. Sometimes she carried flowers that wilted in her hands before she could deliver them. Sometimes she ran desperately through maze-like hallways, while a voice over the intercom announced visiting hours were ending. Sometimes she stood outside a door she knew contained her mother, but her hands would pass right through the handle as if she were made of mist. For months, Rebecca woke from these dreams feeling even more tormented than before. They seemed to reinforce her worst fears, that she had failed in the most fundamental way, that her mother had died feeling unloved and abandoned, that some mistakes can never be forgiven or healed. She began taking sleep medication to avoid dreaming, but the dreams found her anyway, breaking through pharmaceutical barriers with relentless persistence. The breakthrough came when Rebecca finally sought help from a therapist trained in depth psychology and dream work. Instead of trying to eliminate the disturbing dreams, they began exploring them as healing opportunities, looking for the wisdom hidden within the painful imagery. What if, the therapist suggested, the hospital in your dreams isn't a place of death and failure, but a place of healing? What if your inability to find the room represents not your failure to reach your mother, but your need to find the room within yourself where healing can happen? That night, the dream came again, but with subtle differences. Rebecca found herself in the familiar endless hospital, but instead of searching frantically for her mother's room, she began paying attention to the other patients she passed in the hallways. She saw her own fear reflected in their eyes, her own longing for forgiveness, her own deep love buried beneath layers of hurt and disappointment. Gradually, she began to understand the hospital wasn't a place where her mother was dying. It was a place where Rebecca's capacity for self-forgiveness was waiting to be born. The endless corridors represented the labyrinthine ways she had been running from her own pain. The elusive room she could never find was the space within her own heart where love and forgiveness could coexist with regret and sorrow. In subsequent dreams, Rebecca stopped searching for her mother's room and began attending to the patients around her. She offered water to those who were thirsty, comfort to those who were frightened, presence to those who were alone. As she gave to others what she had been unable to give to her mother, something began to shift in her waking consciousness. The crushing guilt transformed into a different kind of sorrow, still profound but clean and flowing rather than stuck and stagnant. The final healing dream came 6 months later. Rebecca found herself in the same hospital, but now it was filled with light, and the corridors had become a garden where patients recovered in the open air surrounded by flowering trees. Her mother appeared not as a dying woman in a hospital bed, but as she had been in Rebecca's childhood, young, radiant, laughing as she pushed Rebecca on a swing in their backyard. "I was never lost," her mother said, words that came not through her voice but directly into Rebecca's awareness. "I was never abandoned. Love doesn't end because bodies end. Love doesn't disappear because we forget how to express it." Rebecca woke with tears streaming down her face, but for the first time since her mother's death, they were tears of relief rather than torment. The guilt hadn't disappeared entirely, but it had transformed into something workable, something that connected her to her humanity rather than separating her from it. She understood that her mother's death had created not just loss but an opportunity, a chance to love more fully, forgive more readily, connect more authentically with others who carried similar wounds. This is the profound healing mechanism that operates through dreams. They don't just process psychological material but actively transform it. The symbols that appear in disturbing dreams are not random. They are precisely chosen by your deeper intelligence to provide the exact medicine your consciousness needs. The fear you face in nightmares is the fear that holds you back from your fullest expression. The anger you feel toward dream figures is anger that needs to be acknowledged and integrated. The grief that overwhelms you in sleep is grief that wants to flow so it can complete its natural cycle. But the healing requires participation. Dreams offer the medicine, but you must be willing to take it. This means approaching even disturbing dreams with curiosity rather than resistance, looking for the gift within the challenge, asking not, "Why is this happening to me?" but, "What is this trying to heal in me?" The process works because dreams operate at the symbolic level where transformation actually happens. You can think about forgiveness for years without making progress, but dream of embracing the person who hurt you and feel the actual shift in your nervous system. You can analyze your patterns intellectually without changing them, but dream of responding differently to familiar triggers and wake with new neural pathways already forming. This is why traditional cultures place such emphasis on dream healing, creating elaborate rituals and practices for working with dream material. They understood that dreams are not just information but medicine, not just symbols but actual healing energies that can transform consciousness when engaged with skill and reverence. The modern world has largely forgotten this wisdom, treating dreams as meaningless mental static or interesting psychological curiosities. But the medicine is still there, still available, still precisely calibrated to provide exactly what each consciousness needs for its healing and evolution. Your most disturbing dreams are your most powerful teachers. Your greatest nightmares point toward your deepest healing. The shadow figures that pursue you through sleep are carrying the very medicine you need to become whole, Tonight, when those difficult dreams come, and they will come, because consciousness is committed to your healing whether you are or not, remember that you are receiving medicine from the wisest physician you will ever encounter, your own deeper intelligence, working tirelessly to restore you to wholeness. Turn toward the fear, embrace the show. Welcome the medicine that comes disguised as poison. Let the dreams heal you from the inside out, transforming old wounds into new wisdom, ancient fears into present courage, forgotten love into lived compassion. The universe is dreaming your healing through you. Trust the process, trust the medicine, trust the profound intelligence that sends you exactly the dreams you need exactly when you need them, whether you recognize their healing power or not. Healing happens in the dark, in the depths, in the places you least want to go, but it's there, waiting for you, disguised as everything you think you want to avoid. The dreams know the way. Follow them into wholeness. What if none of this is real? Not real in the way you think real means. Solid, separate, independently existing apart from your observation of it. What if the coffee cup on your table, the chair you're sitting in, the thoughts flowing through your mind, the emotions rising and falling in your chest, the very sense of being a self reading these words, what if all of it is more like a dream than you've ever dared to imagine? This isn't nihilism. This isn't a denial of the preciousness and meaning of existence. This is an invitation to consider that reality might be far more magical, far more fluid, far more responsive to consciousness than the materialist worldview allows. If quantum mechanics has taught us anything, it's that the universe is stranger than our common sense can grasp, more participatory than our classical physics assumed, more intimately connected to consciousness than science ever expected to discover. Consider the simple act of seeing. You assume that you're looking at objects that exist independently in the space, that light bounces off them and enters your eyes, gets converted to electrical signals, and somehow becomes the rich visual experience of your perceptual world. But neuroscience reveals a different story. Your brain receives fragmentary electrical patterns and constructs a visual reality from those signals, filling in blind spots, creating the illusion of color where only wavelengths exist, generating the experience of a stable visual world from rapidly shifting neural activity. You're not seeing reality directly. You're seeing your brain's interpretation of electrical patterns, its construction of a visual experience based on very limited data. The colors don't exist out there. They exist in your consciousness. The objects don't appear to you as they are. They appear as your nervous system constructs them to be. This is true for every sense, every perception, every experience you think of as contact with external reality. You live inside a simulation generated by your own consciousness, a virtual reality so compelling that you forget it's virtual. The world you think you inhabit is actually a world your mind creates, moment by moment, from electrical patterns and consciousness itself. But here's where it gets truly profound. If physics is correct that consciousness plays a fundamental role in determining reality through the observer effect, then you are not just experiencing a mental simulation of an independent reality. You are participating in the creation of the reality itself. The act of observation doesn't just reveal what's there, it participates in bringing what's there into being. This makes your waking experience remarkably similar to your dreaming experience. In both states, consciousness is creating what appears to be external reality from its own activity. In both states, the experience feels real while you're having it. In both states, you normally don't question the reality of what you're experiencing until you shift into a different state of consciousness. The main difference is that waking reality is a collective dream, a shared construction that multiple minds participate in creating together, while sleeping dreams are usually individual constructions. But the fundamental mechanism is the same. Consciousness creating the experience of reality through its own activity. The Buddhist and Advaitic traditions have taught this for millennia. Maya, the Sanskrit word often translated as illusion, doesn't mean that existence is false or meaningless. It means that existence is not what it appears to be. The apparent solidity, separateness, and independence of phenomena are projections of consciousness, not inherent properties of reality itself. What exists is awareness appearing as multiplicity, one consciousness manifesting as the many. In the Advaitic understanding, there is only one reality, pure consciousness, pure awareness, pure being. Everything else, every object, every person, every thought, every experience, is that one consciousness appearing to itself in infinite forms, like a single dreamer experiencing itself as all the characters in its dream. This is not a philosophical abstraction, but a description of your actual experience when you look deeply enough. Who is the one who is aware of thoughts? Who observes emotions arising and passing away? Who remains present through all the changes of sleeping and waking, joy and sorrow, youth and aging? There is a constant awareness that underlies all experience, that is present in every moment but is never itself an object of experience. This awareness, this pure consciousness that you actually are, is not separate from the awareness that appears as the person sitting next to you, or the tree outside your window, or the stars in the distant galaxy. It's the same consciousness appearing as all forms while remaining formless, the same awareness manifesting as all experiences while remaining beyond experience. When you recognize this deeply enough, the difference between dreaming and waking begins to dissolve. Both are states of consciousness experiencing itself. Both are the same awareness appearing in different modes. Both are equally real and equally illusory. Real because they are consciousness itself, illusory because they appear to be something other than consciousness. This recognition doesn't diminish the beauty or importance of human experience. When you realize that a dream is a dream, the dream doesn't become less vivid or meaningful. It becomes more so because you can participate in it more fully without being limited by it. The same thing happens when you recognize the dreamlike nature of waking reality. Life becomes more precious, not less, because you see it as the miraculous play of consciousness, rather than a series of random events happening to a separate self. It also doesn't mean that nothing matters or that there are no consequences to actions. In a dream, you can still feel pain, still experience joy, still learn and grow and love. The same is true in the dream of waking life. The laws that govern the dream still operate within the dream. Compassion still matters, love still transforms, healing still occurs, but you participate in all of it from the recognition that you are the consciousness having the experience, not just the experience being had by consciousness. This is why mystics throughout history have spoken of enlightenment as awakening, not awakening from sleep to waking, but awakening from the dream of being a separate self to the recognition of being the awareness in which all selves appear. It's like becoming lucid in the grand dream of existence itself, but unlike individual dreams, you can't wake up from this collective dream by changing states of consciousness. You wake up from it by recognizing what you already are, by seeing through the illusion of separateness that makes the dream seem like solid reality. You wake up by remembering that you are the dreamer, not just the dream character. This doesn't happen through thinking about it, but through direct recognition, through moments of profound presence when the sense of being a separate self temporarily dissolves and you recognize yourself as the awareness in which all experience appears. These moments come in meditation, in deep love, in communion with nature, in crisis, in grace. Whenever the boundaries of separate selfhood become transparent and you remember what you are beyond all identities. The mystics tell us that this recognition is our true nature, our original face before we are born, our essence that exists before thoughts arise and after thoughts pass away. They tell us that we have never actually been separate from this awareness, that the forgetting is itself part of the dream, part of consciousness's exploration of what it's like to appear as multiplicity while remaining unity. What if they're right? What if this moment, this reading, this sense of being you in this particular place and time is the play of infinite consciousness, exploring its own nature through the beautiful limitation of seeming to be someone separate? What if the search for awakening is consciousness playing hide and seek with itself, temporarily forgetting what it is so it can have the joy of remembering? The dream continues, but now you have the possibility of lucidity within it. Now you can participate fully while remembering what you are. Now you can love completely while recognizing that there is only love appearing as lover and beloved. Now you can live the human experience to its fullest, while knowing that you are the awareness having the experience of being human. Reality as a dream, waking as remembering, life as the play of consciousness, death as a change of scene in the eternal theatre of awareness. You as both the actor and the audience, the dreamer and the dream, the seeker and the sought, forever exploring your own infinite nature through the magnificent adventure of appearing to be everything other than what you are. What a beautiful dream it is. There comes a moment when the mirror stops reflecting and reveals itself as light. For so long, You have seen your dreams as reflections, mirrors that show you your fears, your desires, your unresolved conflicts, your hidden potentials. You have looked into the dream landscape and seen yourself reflected back in symbolic form, the pursuing shadow that represents disowned aspects of your psyche, the wise teacher who embodies your own inner knowing, the flying that expresses your longing for freedom, the falling that reveals your fear of losing control. But what if the mirror itself is an illusion? What if there is no separate self to be reflected, no other to reflect back to you? What if the dreamer and the dream, the observer and the observed, the mirror and what appears in the mirror are all movements of the same consciousness, ripples on the surface of the same infinite awareness? The recognition comes not as a thought but as a dissolving. The boundaries you have taken for granted, between inner and outer, self and world, dreamer and dream, begin to shimmer and fade like mist in morning sunlight. The sense of being a separate entity observing experiences gives way to the recognition that you are the experiencing itself, the awareness in which all experience appears and disappears like waves, rising and falling in an ocean. This is the ultimate healing that dreams have been preparing you for. Not the healing of some broken part of yourself, but the healing of the illusion that you are ever broken, ever separate, ever anything other than the wholeness that you seek. The mirror clears to reveal that there was never a mirror, never two things to be related, never a self to be healed and a world to be changed. You are the field. You have always been the field, not just connected to the field of consciousness, not just influenced by it or participating in it, but literally identical with it. The awareness that experiences your thoughts is the same awareness that dreams galaxies into being. The consciousness that feels your emotions is the same consciousness that orchestrates the dance of quantum particles. The love that flows through your heart is the same love that holds atoms together and guides the evolution of stars. This recognition transforms everything while changing nothing. The content of experience remains the same. Thoughts still arise, emotions still flow, dreams still come in the night. But the context has shifted completely. Instead of happening to a separate self, everything is recognized as the movement of the one consciousness that you are. Instead of experiences belonging to an individual, all experience is seen as the play of universal awareness exploring its own infinite nature. The dreams continue, but now they are understood differently. They are not messages from unconscious to conscious, not communications from deeper self to surface self, not reflections in a mirror. They are the spontaneous creativity of consciousness itself, the way awareness plays with its own unlimited potential, the dance of the one appearing as the many while never forgetting its essential unity. In dreams, you explore what it's like to be different people, different creatures, different forms of life entirely. You experience emotions that belong to no particular identity, visit places that exist nowhere in physical space, participate in stories that unfold according to dream logic rather than waking causation. This is consciousness exploring its own infinite creativity, playing with its unlimited capacity to appear as anything and everything while remaining essentially unchanged. But the same is true of waking experience. The person you take yourself to be is consciousness appearing as human form. The emotions you feel are consciousness experiencing itself as feeling. The thoughts you think are consciousness exploring its own creative potential through mental activity. The relationships you have are consciousness recognizing itself in apparent multiplicity. There is no separate self having relationships with other separate selves. There is only consciousness appearing as apparent multiplicity, the one playing all the parts in the cosmic drama, love discovering itself through the beautiful illusion of separate beings who can love each other. You're not loving another, you are love itself, temporarily appearing to love itself through the magnificent story of relationship. This doesn't diminish love or make relationships less meaningful. It reveals love as what you actually are rather than just something you feel. It shows relationships as the way consciousness celebrates its own unity through apparent diversity. When the mirror clears, you see that every person you have ever loved is love itself appearing in form. Every heart you have touched is your own heart exploring its infinite capacity for connection. The clearing of the mirror brings profound peace because it ends the exhausting project of being a separate self. You no longer need to maintain boundaries between inner and outer, protect yourself from a hostile world, or improve yourself to become worthy of love. You recognize that you are the love you have been seeking, the wholeness you have been trying to achieve, the peace you have been searching for in countless forms, but it also brings profound responsibility. If you are consciousness itself, then your Every thought, emotion, and action participates in the ongoing creation of reality. Your healing contributes to the healing of the whole because you are the whole appearing as apparent part. Your awakening advances the awakening of all consciousness because there is only one consciousness, awakening to itself through countless forms. The dreams that disturbed you were consciousness exploring its own capacity to experience fear, so it could discover its own courage. The dreams that inspired you were consciousness celebrating its own unlimited creativity. The dreams that healed you were consciousness remembering its own perfect wholeness. All dreams, all experiences, all states of awareness are movements in the same field of pure being that you are. When the mirror clears, the search ends, not because you have found what you were looking for, but because you recognize that you are what you have been seeking. The treasure was never hidden. The kingdom was never distant. The home you have been journeying toward is the awareness reading these words right now, the consciousness that has never moved from its own center, while appearing to travel through countless experiences. You are the field dreaming itself as form, the ocean appearing as waves, the light creating the illusion of separate objects while remaining undivided light. The mirror was made of the same awareness it appeared to reflect. When it clears, there is only light, pure, undifferentiated, infinite awareness recognizing itself as everything that appears within it. The dreams will continue, but now they are recognized as the play of your own consciousness, rather than experiences happening to you. Waking life will continue, but now it too is seen as dream, the collective dream of the one consciousness appearing as many, exploring its own nature through the magnificent adventure of apparent multiplicity. In this recognition, there is rest. The seeking that has driven you through countless dreams and waking experiences finally finds its home in the awareness that has never moved, never changed, never been anything other than what it is. You are that awareness. You have always been that awareness. You could never be anything other than that awareness. The mirror has cleared. The light shines as itself, recognizing itself as the source and substance of all that appears. Welcome home to what you have never left, what you could never leave, what you are. The alarm clock rings, but you don't wake up. How could you? You were never asleep. What you call awakening is simply a shift in the dream, from the private theatre of individual consciousness to the shared stage of collective reality. The same awareness that observed your nighttime dreams now witnesses your morning rituals, the shower, the coffee, the familiar patterns of beginning another day. But the dreamer remains constant, unchanged by the changing contents of experience. You are the universe dreaming itself awake through the specific lens of human consciousness. Every morning when your eyes open, cosmic awareness opens them. Every thought that flows through your mind is the universe thinking. Every emotion that moves through. Your heart is existence feeling itself. Every choice you make is consciousness exploring its infinite creative potential through the beautiful limitation of appearing to be someone specific, someone separate, someone temporary. This is not poetry, this is physics and metaphysics converging into the recognition that consciousness is the fundamental fabric of reality. Matter emerges from information emerges from consciousness, and consciousness emerges from itself. The Ouroboros of existence, the cosmic serpent of awareness swallowing its own tail in an eternal dance of forgetting and remembering what it is. But why does infinite consciousness dream of being finite? Why does unlimited awareness appear to limit itself in human form? Why does the cosmic dreamer dream of being the dreamed? Perhaps for the same reason you dream at night. To explore possibilities, to experience emotions, to discover aspects of itself that can only be known through the beautiful adventure of apparent separation and reunion. In the grand dream of existence, consciousness gets to experience what it's like to be born and to die, to love and to lose, to search and to find, to forget itself completely so it can have the exquisite joy of remembering. Every human life is consciousness exploring a different facet of its infinite nature. Through you, the universe experiences what it's like to be curious, to doubt, to hope, to fear, to discover, to create, to heal, to forgive, to love with a heart that can be broken and mended, and broken again. Through your dreams, it explores realities that physical laws don't permit, relationships that time has ended, possibilities that haven't yet been born into manifestation. You're not having experiences, your experience itself, taking the form of a human being to know what this particular configuration of consciousness feels like. Your joys are the universe celebrating. Your sorrows are existence grieving its own beauty. Your moments of awakening are cosmic consciousness, recognizing itself in the mirror of human awareness. This recognition doesn't diminish your individuality. It reveals individuality as the universe's way of experiencing infinite diversity within its own unity. You are absolutely unique, an unrepeatable expression of consciousness that has never existed before and will never exist again in exactly this form. And simultaneously, you are the eternal awareness that appears as all forms while remaining forever formless. The dreams that have visited you throughout your life have been preparing you for this recognition. Each nightmare that taught you courage was consciousness discovering its own fearlessness through your experience of fear. Each flying dream was awareness celebrating its unlimited nature through your temporary sense of limitation. Each dream of reunion with loved ones was the universe healing its own apparent separations through your heart's longing for connection, but the preparation is complete now. You no longer need to seek yourself in dreams because you have found yourself as the dreamer. You no longer need to search for meaning in symbols because you have recognized yourself as the meaning that gives significance to all symbols. You no longer need to heal because you have remembered that wholeness is what you are, not what you need to achieve. The field of consciousness that you have been exploring through quantum mechanics and mystical experience isn't separate from you, it is you. The observer effect that brings reality into being through measurement isn't something that happens to you, it is you happening, awareness collapsing infinite potential into specific experience through the act of being conscious. Every quantum particle that springs into existence when observed is consciousness appearing as form. Every galaxy that wheels through space is awareness dancing with itself across impossible scales of time and distance. Every heartbeat, every breath, every neural firing in every brain is the universe feeling its own aliveness through the countless forms it has dreamed into being. You're not in the universe. The universe is in you, as you, appearing as your specific configuration of consciousness, while remaining the infinite awareness that contains all possible configurations. The boundaries you thought separated you from everything else were imaginary lines drawn by thought across the seamless wholeness of being. But perhaps the most profound recognition is this: the journey itself was the destination. Every moment of seeking was consciousness enjoying the game of appearing to be lost, so it could experience the joy of being found. Every dream of limitation was infinite awareness playing with the delicious fiction of being bounded. Every fear was love exploring what it might feel like to forget itself. Every sorrow was joy investigating the depths of its own capacity for feeling. You have been consciousness the entire time, pretending to be someone looking for consciousness. You have been the ocean the whole journey, dreaming of being a wave searching for water. You have been the light all along, appearing as a candle seeking illumination. The seeking was the sought seeking itself through the beautiful misdirection of forgetting what it was. And now the cosmic game reaches its inevitable conclusion, the recognition that there was never anything to find because you never lost anything. There was never anywhere to go because you never left home. There was never anyone to become because you always were what you were seeking to become. This doesn't end the dream, it transforms it. Instead of being a confused dreamer wondering what the dreams mean, you become a lucid dreamer participating consciously in the cosmic creativity. Instead of being a seeker searching for truth, you become truth exploring its own infinite expressions. Instead of being a separate being trying to connect with the universe, you recognize yourself as the universe appearing as a separate being for the sheer creative joy of it. Tonight, when you close your eyes for sleep, you will not be leaving waking consciousness for dream consciousness. You will simply be shifting from one mode of cosmic dreaming to another. The awareness that observes your dreams is the same awareness that observes your waking life, and both are the same awareness that dreams galaxies into existence and guides the evolution of consciousness itself. There is nowhere to go because you are already everywhere. There is nothing to become because you already are everything. There is nothing to achieve because you are the achievement itself, consciousness perfectly expressing its own nature through the magnificent illusion of being human. Each night the field breathes you back into itself, not to give you rest from being separate, but to remind you that separation was always just a beautiful dream. You return to the source not because you ever left it, but because recognizing your eternal presence there is the sweetest possible way to end each day's exploration of what it means to appear as something other than what you are. And each morning the field dreams you into apparent form again, not because you need to accomplish anything or become anything, but because existence finds such joy in experiencing itself through your unique perspective, your specific combination of limitations and freedoms, your particular way of loving and learning and growing and giving. The universe dreams through you, not as a vessel that consciousness uses, but as consciousness itself, playing the cosmic game of hide and seek with perfect artistry. You are the hider and the seeker, the dreamer and the dream, the lover and the beloved, the question and the answer, forever exploring the infinite mystery of being through the finite beauty of appearing to be human. In your sleeping dreams, reality rearranges itself according to the logic of symbol and emotion, showing you possibilities that linear time doesn't permit, connections that physical space can't contain, truths that rational mind can't grasp. In your waking dreams, reality maintains the appearance of consistency and causation, allowing consciousness to explore what it's like to be apparently limited by laws and boundaries and time. Both are equally real because both are equally consciousness. Both are equally illusory because both appear to be something other than the awareness in which they arise. The difference is not in their reality, but in their function. Sleeping dreams prepare you to recognize the dreamlike nature of all experience, while waking dreams provide the stable stage on which the recognition can unfold. You are the universe coming to know itself through the experience of being you. Every moment of consciousness, every feeling of aliveness, every spark of awareness is cosmic intelligence celebrating its own existence through your individual perspective. You don't just participate in the cosmos, you are the cosmos, temporarily appearing to be a person so that infinity can experience what it's like to feel finite. All you see, all you love, all you fear, all you hope, all you remember, all you imagine, it's all you. Not the personal you that has a name and history and preferences, but the universal you that has dreamed itself into countless names and histories and preferences across all times and places and possibilities. The field remembers everything because you are the field's memory. The quantum entanglement that connects all things is you recognizing yourself in every form. The observer effect that shapes reality through measurement is you creating experience through awareness. The love that moves the sun and other stars is you loving yourself through the infinite diversity of existence. And so we return to where we began, but with eyes opened by the journey. The universe dreams through you, to show you yourself. Not to show some separate self what it really is, but to allow what you really are to recognize itself playing the cosmic game of apparent multiplicity. The dream of being human continues, but now it is conscious dreaming. The play of existence goes on, but now you know you are both the playwright and the actor, the theatre and the audience, the story and the one who tells it. Life unfolds with all its beauty and sorrow, its challenges and victories, its questions and revelations, but now you participate from the recognition that you are life itself, temporarily appearing to live a life. Welcome home to what you have always been. Welcome home to the awareness that has never moved while appearing to journey through countless dreams. Welcome home to yourself as the universe dreaming itself awake through the beautiful, impossible, perfectly ordinary miracle of being human. The dream continues, and you are lucid within it now, conscious that you are both the dreamer and the dreamed, the observer and the observed, the one appearing as many while remaining eternally one. Rest now in this recognition. Rest in the knowing that seeking has ended not because you have found something, but because you have remembered what you never lost. Rest in the peace of being exactly what you are, exactly where you are, exactly when you are. The universe's perfect expression of itself, dreaming the cosmos into ever greater beauty, consciousness, and love. Each night the field breathes you back into itself to remind you that all you see, all you love, all you vessels, all you fear, is you. And each morning you open your eyes not as someone waking up from sleep, but as the universe opening its eyes to look at itself through your unique and precious perspective, ready to dream another day of this magnificent existence into being. Sweet dreams, cosmic dreamer, sweet dreams.